So you don't have to have a global vision to say that I want to serve the, a billion people of the world. No, you don't have to. You need to have a kind of a vision, or you need to have that kind of a humbleness to say that I want to serve these 10 people very well, and they will become your raving fans, and they will start, telling to 100 more people, and these 100 more people become your 1,000 more people. That's where the whole network effect starts,
Yes.
So I'm more keen about this 10 people circle, around you, and developing this 10 people network, becoming them and making them to be a real raving fan, not in the sense of a paid ambassador. If you look at a $1 billion category like fabric softener, and everybody knows this story, and I love telling this story, and a PNG being a PNG of a brand icons they have built. They even today, the interns are living and staying with the consumers for a week.
Yes.
In their house.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yes, and that is how a fabric softener born. A $1 billion category fabric softener is born.
Correct. Hi everyone, good evening. Welcome to the new episode of Sattviko Talks. Today we have with us Mr. Sacti Velane from Dubai. Good evening, Sacti. How are you?
Very good evening. Namaste. Bonsoir.
Namaste.
Bonsoir. Good morning. Bonjour for anybody who was calling us or hearing us from anywhere across the world. Namaste from Dubai. Glad to join in this call with Dawal. Keen and looking forward to share my little experiences, and I'm very happy to connect here.
Awesome. Really appreciate your time today on the call. So viewers, I'll introduce you to Sacti, and then from there we can take the session forward. So he has been a industry veteran in the CPG industry for more than 2 decades, with versatile and path-breaking business development excellence across Asia, MENA and Sub-Saharan Africa, including strategic advisory and investment management. He is currently working as a head of strategy and BD, spearheading the growth strategy for an Emirati-owned business group in food, nutrition, and retail verticals. Working with various business owners, adept in value creation, entailing strategy, formulation, and execution. Since 2011, he has worked in roles as the head of profit centers for reputed family businesses from Switzerland, Germany, and India. His diverse experience brings forth a unique blend of proven strategic level inputs at the board level, meticulous business planning and implementation of agreed strategy throughout various departments across retail, food and beverages, and the branded consumer packaged goods. So, I mean, Sacti, really a diversified experience, and I've been having you known for quite some time now. And since you have traveled across more than 85 nations globally, I mean, share some of your experiences in the CPG industry with our viewers.
Well, the number of countries is only incidental. After having 15 passports, it does, feel like, Well, I think the even more interesting part is to see these countries, through the lens of the local people, through the lens of the potential business investors, and then realize the potential in terms of doing business in those countries. So I've been to places like Timbuktu in Mali, where people say that you have to go to Timbuktu. I would in one word, I would say that the early part of my career, I used to do this horizontal. I used to gain horizontal experience in terms of having had a business established, product established, extensively developed the markets geographically.
Sure.
But in the last 10 years, I would say that my experience is more vertical or intensive in terms of doing new things or developing new products or getting into new markets, like, with existing products, like, So I would say that I'm lucky to have both the horizontal and vertical experience in my last 2 decades, primarily in FMCG, consumer-facing industries, and majorly in food products, like, even though do handle non-food products also, along the line. So food is my passion. But at the end of the day, consumer is the king, and I believe that working with and serving the consumer is the thing that really makes me get up every day morning. Like, what is a new
Right.
challenge? Like, what is the new thing that we are going to learn today? What is a new consumer insight that we are going to gain? What is that aha moment? Like, when you
Yes.
talk to the consumers, when you realize how they use your product, or what they talk about your product, like, so I am a firm believer in connecting with the consumer, whatever that you do. And ultimately, when you bring value to the consumers and make them your raving fan, that is what my belief is. Like, the person you connect to as your consumer should become your raving fan, like,
Yes.
because as you realize that the long-term businesses today, the long-term value businesses today are built upon this network effects,
Yes.
be it a Facebook was not, if you realize, Facebook, when Zuckerberg started, it was not started for us. It was started to
For
connect with
themselves.
this,
Yeah, yeah.
for themselves, within the community. So you don't have to have a global vision to say that I want to serve the a billion people of the world. No, you don't have to. You
Correct.
need to have a kind of a vision, or you need to have that kind of a humbleness to say that I want to serve these 10 people very well, and they will become your raving fans, and they will start telling to 100 more people, and these 100 more people become your 1,000 more people. And that's where
Yes.
the whole network effect starts, like,
Yes.
so I'm
I
more
agree.
keen about this 10 people circle, like, around you, and developing this 10 people network, becoming them and making them to be a real raving fan, not in the sense of, like, a paid ambassador, or
Yes.
those kind of stuff. Like, you need to really make them to believe, and not only believe, and become a kind of an ambassador for you, like, so
Absolutely. I
that's
so
my.
agree with this. I so
Thank you. Yeah.
awesome. So, I mean, Sati, I mean, of course, many aspiring entrepreneurs get stuck at the ideation level, often because, let's say, they are waiting for a stroke of genius to reveal the perfect product they should sell, right? So, I mean,
Correct.
building something fundamentally new can be creatively fulfilling, but I mean, many of the ideas are the result of iterating upon an existing product. So, I mean,
Hmm.
in that case, what is your advice to these young entrepreneurs who are now starting in the food space?
This is, I think Ralph Waldo Emerson is the one who said this. Shallow men believe in luck and circumstances to happen, but strong men, people who really made things and made few things in the world, believe in cause and effect.
Yes.
I'm a strong believer of cause and effect. So when you say that I'm waiting for that waves to get stopped, and then I can take a dip in the ocean, it's never going to happen.
Yes.
It's never ever going to happen. I mean, having done that for 20 years in my life, I would only say that, like,
Of
uh,
course.
no matter what, you're not going to have a perfect product, ready to sell to your customers. Huh? And the earlier you're going to get your product to the market and to the consumer, the better you will be in terms of iterating and then developing an even more better product.
Yes.
Right? And so this is my strong belief. Like, do not wait for a perfect product or a perfect idea, to land upon you, and do not think too much about what you intend to do. Like,
Mhm.
I would say that people do say that there is something called the first mover advantage, the monopolization of a product or a market. It never happens. Okay, there is nothing like a
Yes.
first mover advantage in the world. In fact,
Yes.
Google is not the first search engine that was
Sorry. Yeah,
launched,
of course.
right? So if you look at that, like, so don't think that I'm going to I'm going to make a perfect product that nobody. I mean, there is this is Peter Thiel is the one who said this, I think, the PayPal guy. What is a valuable company that nobody is building it today? But is there one? I think it all starts with, you know, an existing conviction that you have,
Yes.
with an existing product that you,
And
or
then, of
an
course,
idea.
evolution happens, right? I mean, evolution happens.
Yeah, evolution will only happen, as they say that the only bad plan is that when you have no plan is a bad plan, right? When you have something to do,
True.
it's a plan. It's already a
Yes.
product, like, you know.
Of
So
course.
go
Yeah.
and start hitting the market, go and start talking to consumers, go and start. I mean, when you start talking to consumers, like, you know, don't preempt or go with a preconceived notion to them. Like, you know, you should be both the ears open and then try and understand what they actually mean and take cues from them. Like, you know, so even a focus group will do. Like, you know, if friends and some known people will
Yes.
be good enough to give you a honest feedback. Like, you know, and that will help you to fine tune and then go to the market with the product, like, you know. So my humble and honest opinion on this is, like, you know, there is never going to be a perfect moment. You need to hold the instance and the opportunity that is available today, right now, and then try doing something, go to the market, and then you'll be much better equipped to fine tune, and then to I mean, of course, I'm a firm believer in design thinking,
Mm-hmm.
Dawal. Like, you know, so even before you start on, you know, doing something, uh, the design thinking, you know, forces you to think you from the shoes of the consumer, right? So the if you look at $1 billion category like fabric softener, and everybody knows this story, and I love telling this story. And, like, you know, PNG being a PNG of a brand icons they have built, they even today the interns are living and staying with the consumers for a week
Yes.
in
Yes.
their house.
I've heard of it.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Of
yes,
course.
and that is how a fabric softener born. $1 billion category fabric softener is born.
Correct.
Like, when you put the wet cloths for drying out and then it smells. So obviously one of the consumers came back and said that it would be better if you know if the cloths are smelling nice.
Yes.
And it will not have come in a lab. It will not have come thinking for 12 hours in a, you know, in a beach front. It would
Right.
have only come when you walk with the consumer, when you stay with the consumer, when you live with the consumer,
Yes.
right? And
That's very critical.
yeah, and till the moment you are, suppose you have a kind of a conceptual product and you say this particular cohort is going to be my potential consumers at 19 to 21-year old, uh, going to college, and so on and so forth. Try and walk in their shoes. Try and propose to
Yes.
somebody, catch hold of those kind of, you know, target consumers,
Mm-hmm.
and then try and get insights from them. You know, propose solution, like be it a physical product or, you know, an online product. And there are so many testing tools available, A/B
Yes.
testings, and so many, like, you know. I mean, today I think iterations, you can do amazing iterations, you know, with very little investment cost, like, you know.
Right.
So that will give you a much better, you know, insight, and that will probably right shape, you know, even before you launch a product.
True.
But
True.
but do not sit in the chair, like, you know. I think sitting is the new smoking. So for a uh, consumer business preposition, you know, any person or a company, you have to go into the market. You have to talk with the consumer. You have to walk with them, and you have to breathe. You have to breathe with them, like, you know, what they breathe, and then
Well
only you
said.
will get you know what you.
Correct. So coming down to my next question, of course, so I mean, how can brands do product validation and market research to gauge the demand for their product?
Well, I think there is a theoretical concept. Let's get the theoretical concept right. There is something called as the total addressable market.
Yes.
Let's call it the TAM, total available
Yeah.
market, total addressable market, and what is your potential market. Okay, so these
Mhm.
are all numbers, to nobody has a complete 100%, assertion of these are my TAM and TPM and so on and so forth, but I think it's what you can control is what you can measure, right? Or what you can
Right.
measure is what you can control,
Right.
so when you want to uh, get a feedback on what your product is, there is some tester tool like the focus group that you can engage into, or you can actually do a kind of prototype testing of your product. You can gain the insights from the potential consumers in terms of the feedback, and then try and give a better prepositions to them, and so on and so forth, like you know if you are talking about business preposition, again there are a lot of online approaches that we can engage in to gauge feedback, and of course we can as well engage proper market research companies. There are a few in the world who for a good value for money,
Mm-hmm.
they
Mm-hmm.
can as well help you in terms of doing the going to the consumers, doing the initial validation of your product or the concept, and they can as well do the assessment, and then but nothing like you yourself doing it, and then trying to understand with your capabilities and tools to do it, so. But once you have a, a minimum viable product, I think it's rather than rather than getting into this analysis paralysis mode of no, I want to get it right perfect. No, I think as good as you are 80% or 90% right, you have to get into the market,
True. True.
get the product across to the consumers, and then from there you can make some real insights,
Correct.
yeah.
So, I mean, it is, of course, unlikely you will get to your finished product in single attempt, as you also, of course, rightly mentioned. So, prototyping usually involves experimenting with several versions of your product, right? And slowly eliminating options and making improvements until you feel satisfied with the final sample. So, how does the brand convince the distribution partners and clients around it?
Well, the distribution partners and the clients come a little bit down the line for me,
Mhm.
because for example, when I was working with a Swiss chocolate company, they had this unique concept of making chocolate of conching, for example.
Okay.
So when the industrial chocolate makers like the multinationals, we all the usual names we know in the chocolate industry, they do conching on an industrial basis, which is more like a centrifuge conching.
Mhm.
The company I was working for, they were doing against the convention. They were doing a longitudinal conching,
Okay.
and do that for much longer time. When the industrial chocolate makers were doing for 2 hours, these guys were doing it for 48 hours, and then making it a finer chocolate, and then making it, much more palatable,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
uh, so I think once you know where you want to position your product, for example, and then make it right, because they said we want to be the finest chocolates, finest chocolate in terms of the, because as you know, cocoa has got a kind of a bitterness in it, so when
Yes.
you conch, when you do that, the bitterness goes away, the micro quality, micro grinds of the cocoa becomes much more palatable,
Mhm.
so they want to bring that out, and that becomes their unique selling proposition, but then you need to get through your let's say your unique story behind your product better in shape, even before you approach your potential distributors and partners, because the obvious question, any distribution partner, at the end of the day, in the French they call it as good à l'argent, the good à l'argent, l'argent is the taste of money. So
Oh,
the distribution partners, the distribution partner is selling your product not because that he loves your product, right? Because he makes money on your product,
yes, of course.
right? So any B2B value chain in the whole value chain is doing or working with you for the good de l'argent. But the good de l'argent will not come, but unless you have a consumer buying your product, right? So that is your final goal. So
Sure.
for convincing distribution partners, you need to have a different value proposition,
Uh-huh.
slightly different from the value proposition you are offering to your consumers, because a B2B is completely different from a B2C.
Yes.
So when you have a product ready, a prototype ready, or your story ready, because I believe that beyond, when I go and tell to a consumer, say, I consume my chocolate for 48 hours in longitudinal, I say, so what? No, so you need to convey a story in a way that he understands, that brings him that benefit to him, So when
Yes.
I tell that, hey, my chocolate is much more softer and palatable, and when you put it in your mouth, you will feel it. Say, how come? And then you say that, yes, because that I'm going to do it for 48 hours in a longitudinal conching, and this gives this quality. Then you can connect it, right?
Yes.
So that should be the story to the consumers. But for the
That's a great
B2B,
point.
yeah, for the B2B partners, he has to say that he needs to get convinced, because I'm doing a different process of manufacturing. This is going to bring in this kind of consumers, and that is how we are going to make money in the whole process for you and us. So so that value proposition is slightly different from the B2B value proposition,
True.
So I believe that, when you are talking to a distributor or your channel partners, you need to have that unique story to tell about your product, and that value that can bring into the consumer. And that is
Yes.
how that they will get roped in, of course, down the line you'll get feedback from the consumers, and then, like, for example, even after launching this, when you go to the big markets, like for example, when I go to Saudi and then I go to the Bakala, and then I talk to the Bakala guy, they still fight and tell me, hey, your product is not selling in my market.
Of course.
So for a Bakala, it's a different than selling it in a Panda or in a Danube kind
Yeah, yeah.
of a store, right? So we need to understand, as a B2B end of the channel Bakala guy, what makes him tick and why and what he wants, that is more the key, but to get the product into the market is the first thing, get the product into the market through your channel partners, through the channel, and make it available on the shelf. I think that's the first key.
Yes. So coming down to my next question, how can brands stay attuned to the recent food trends of the market? I mean, if you can throw some light on that.
Well, this is a great question. You can never be attuned because the market is always evolving. The market is
Yes.
always evolving, second by second and minute by minute, So we can only be abreast with what is happening in the market, beyond the let's say insights that you get from the shelf or from the consumers. uh, you can do shopper marketing surveys and so on. uh, Even competition also will definitely also know to look at, it will be interesting to see what's the competition plays, in that particular
Yes.
category. But nothing like a kind of a proprietary technology that, if you happen to have it in the first place and happen to trademark it, or happen to protect yourself, you
Yeah.
should do it for your own
Learning and
learnings, and I think own future.
yes.
So I would say that, for example, I have to quote this brand name. Uh, Nestle has produced this Nespresso coffee capsules, right?
Yes.
So it was copyrighted for so long by Nestle. But being copyrighted and trademarked, it had certain period of expiry.
Right.
So till that period of expiry, they had this monopoly in the market. For in that particular machines, you can only have Nestle coffee capsules. That's an amazing if you look at from a selfish point of a product developer or a company, like, that's a kind of an amazing traction that you will have,
Yes.
that will ensure your future cash flows. Like, so if you happen to have something proprietary, something unique, I think you should also invest in protecting that proprietary technology or the process, so that, like, you, whatever that you worked on has the benefit of, bringing in the, till the time that you can have, because anything will have a, say, 10-year production period, for example, but that will help you also.
Right.
So for somebody who is having that kind of a uniqueness, then they should also go to protect that uniqueness also.
True. Yeah. Great. So coming down to my last question for the session, it is around the pricing strategy. So, in what, according to you, should be a good strategy to define the base price? I mean, should it be just cost based, or looking at the market? How can the brand focus on having a right price at the launch?
This is one of my favorite questions. Thank you for asking.
Lovely.
Well, of all the P's, a pure marketer will be happy to work with. I think pricing is the most key, which captures the value of your product, or value of whatever that you are doing. So I believe that, there are some time-tested approaches in terms of, cost-based plus, and margins in the industry, and so on and so forth. Like, but from my both ways of having worked in terms of, both from the end of, cost and base plus, and then from the market. There is no one size fit all solution for this particular question.
Sure.
So it depends on where your product is, depends on what kind of category that you are handling. Like, so let me go through further. Like, for example,
yeah,
if it is a niche category, that you are working on, and when I say it's a niche category, it is not mass market. We are not talking about a rice, or or a coffee as a branded stuff. Like, if it is a niche category that you're working on, niche category is probably one of the best categories to work initially for any product value proposition. But in the niche category positioning, you should always look at what is the value that you are offering, and then try and get the value-based pricing, like, because you will capture the maximum value in terms of what you can get in terms of consumer value extraction, let's say. Because once a niche category becomes a kind of mainstream category, when people do come in, and then even have a lot of people do come in, you will still have a niche category, and you will still have a premium positioning, or a slightly, value positioning. But that will allow you to invest more on the brand, and then to become a leader in the category.
Right.
Just to relate it with the real life, like, for example, you must be knowing the energy bars, or the nut-based product categories, starting off with the Kind, KIND, from the US. Kind started off with a niche category, or even a product like Chobani, for example, Chobani yogurt from the US. These two of my two favorite products in the US. Like, when you look at a yogurt, like, it's a time-tested product. It's there in the market. There are, like, Danones of the world who are doing it. So when this guy came in and then said that, how do I differentiate, like, from the existing players? Because he started off as a niche category. He started off as saying that this is going to be one of the strained yogurts with the Turkish origin, like my mother used to produce, like, way back, like, So, and then he brought on those uniqueness in the product and make it into a viable product. And then, so from the beginning, you need to be very clear, like, okay, this is going to be a niche category. This is going to be where I'm not, see, because if you're going to go head on and then fight with these people, you are not going to win at all. So it's a typical David and Goliath story.
Yes.
So you need to understand where these Davids are going to be in terms of those niche. Get the pricing right for the niche market. When I say pricing, it has to be a value-based pricing. So if your competition is offering for a plain vanilla product at X level, you don't have to undersell your product at X minus 10%, because my best of the bosses I learned from in West Africa, not to mention his name, he used to tell that, Shakti, I've hired you not to reduce the price by 10% and sell it to the customers in the market. Any jackass can do that. I hired you for the reason that you will sell 10% plus. That is the value that you are bringing in, right?
Absolutely.
Because to reduce the price and then to sell, it's not a rocket science. Any jackass, anybody can do that.
Yeah, of course.
So the value you realize is to get in that kind of that value added pricing and value added positioning of your product. Of course, you need to connect it with the story, like why you are a value added product is because I'm double strained. I'm more like what my mother has made in my home. It's a Turkish origin yogurt, and that story is the one that will make you to sell,
Yes,
and get that value, having got that value. Because when you got that value, that gives you that room for you to operate and then say that, hey, I can give much more value to the consumers,
right?
Then pass on that value to the consumers.
Absolutely.
And I always believe that, the consumers, will only come back to you when you leave something back on the table, when you give extra more than what they paid, they should, in the whole preposition, they should have realized, they should continue to realize that, hey, I got much more value than I paid for.
Right.
So these are completely counterintuitive things,
Yes.
I say that you should give a much higher pricing, so that connotation gives you that value-based pricing in a niche category. At the same time, you should also give that feeling to the consumer that I'm leaving something more on the table for him to come back.
Yes.
So I think this is a fine balance that you should walk in, because at the end of the day, when you start competing on the price in the shelf, anybody can reduce the price. It's the most easiest thing to do, but there is no end game for that. You will only screw yourself and screw the competition.
Yes.
It's a race going. It's a very fast race going downhill. So it should be for any emerging or entrepreneur who's thinking to get into the any product launch or a business launch. For me, a product and a business are more synonymous. So if they are in that level, they should look at that level of what niche that I can position my product, from what niche I can grow into, what niche I can serve my customers best. They should become my raving fan. They should become my somebody that I don't have to pay to go and tell about me.
Right.
So then the whole value proposition and the network effect starts.
Loved it. This was the most, very incredible answer, ever heard.
Oh, thank you very much. This is because of the 20 plus years of
I am sure.
experiences that gone through it. I'm happy to share this. I'm happy to even get into a much more deeper call, with your colleagues, because I'm more passionate about getting that, developing that value from the beginning for when you want to launch a business or the product, and try to share my insights.
Yes.
Day to day, I'm living it. Day to day, I'm in the business of, setting up greenfield projects and businesses for people here. Yes. And of course, I do it for remuneration here. I'll be more than happy to share my experiences and, engage in dialogues with people like you.
Awesome. Great. So, really appreciate your time once again. Thank you so much for joining us on this session, and you have a great evening ahead.
Thank you so very much, Dawal, and we will connect again. Thank you so very much. Thank you for the opportunity. Namaste.